"They're just the janitor," whispered the students as they rushed past him in the hallway. Frank quietly mopped the floors, rarely speaking to anyone. That is, until one Tuesday, when a gun threat forced the school into lockdown, and the principal discovered a photo in Frank's locker showing a decorated colonel who once led the country's most prestigious military academy. Welcome to Honor of Stories, where we honor the quiet heroes and untold acts of courage that surround us every day. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden leadership and unexpected heroism, let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, subscribe to help us continue honoring those who serve in silence. Jefferson High School, Tuesday morning, 6:47 a.m. The hallways were empty, except for one man pushing a yellow mop bucket across the polished floor. Frank Williams had walked that same quiet path for 8 years, arriving before the teachers, before the students, before the chaos of another school day began. At 67 years old, Frank wasn't the kind of janitor who demanded attention. There were no loud greetings, no attempts to bond with hurried teenagers who barely acknowledged his presence. He simply performed his duties with methodical precision, cleaning classrooms, changing bulbs, fixing broken locks, maintaining order in all the small ways that kept the school running. To the 800 students of Jefferson High, Frank was invisible, a part of the background, like the motivational posters on the walls or the trophy cases in the main hallway. Their minds were on exams, friendships, and the endless drama of teenage life as they passed him by without a second glance. But if they'd looked closer, they might have noticed a few things that didn't quite fit the image of an ordinary school janitor. Like Frank's posture, too upright, too disciplined for a man his age, or how his eyes didn't just scan for trash or spills, but moved like someone trained to detect threats before they happened, analyzing and cataloging every detail of his surroundings. Even his hands told stories, worn and scarred, but with a steadiness that hinted at experience far beyond cleaning supplies. And the way he interacted with the few staff members who bothered to engage him, respectful but distant, like someone used to maintaining professional boundaries in high-risk situations. Principal Sarah Martinez had noticed these things over the years, but never pieced them together into a full picture. Frank was dependable, meticulous, and somehow always aware of problems before they arose. Broken equipment would be fixed before anyone reported it. Safety hazards would disappear before they caused accidents. It was as if he was always thinking 3 steps ahead. But Frank never spoke about himself. When conversations got personal, he would quietly excuse himself with a polite nod, the same nod he gave everyone. His personnel file was remarkably thin. Clean background check, solid references from a community college job, and not much else. What Principal Martinez didn't know was that Frank's previous job had lasted just 18 months. And before that, there were 30 years of service not listed on any civilian resume. 30 years that ended with a quiet retirement ceremony and a promise to himself that the next chapter would be different, quieter, simpler, focused on building instead of breaking. Tuesday morning began like any other. Frank completed his pre-dawn setup, unlocked the doors, disarmed the alarms, and prepared the building for another day of controlled chaos. By 7:30, the hallways filled with students, their voices echoing off the lockers as they caught up on weekend gossip and compared homework answers. That's when everything changed. The call came at 8:23 a.m. to the main office. A credible threat had been made against the school, specific and serious enough that law enforcement immediately recommended a lockdown while they investigated. As Principal Martinez reached for the intercom, her stomach turned. She knew the next few minutes would test every emergency protocol they had practiced, but never hoped to use. "Teachers and students, this is Principal Martinez. We are initiating a lockdown immediately. Please follow all designated safety procedures, remain calm, and stay in your current locations until further notice. The announcement rippled through the building like controlled panic. Teachers locked classroom doors, turned off lights, and moved students away from windows. In seconds, the hallways fell silent, leaving only muffled whispers and the distant echo of unmoving footsteps between thick walls. Frank was in the supply closet, doing a routine inventory check. When he heard the announcement, he paused, listened, and then something shifted. His stance straightened, his eyes sharpened. 30 years of training snapped back into place in an instant. This was no drill. As Principal Martinez juggled chaotic phone calls in her office, with police, district administrators, and anxious parents, Frank moved silently into action. His first stop, the security office, to assess the layout of the building. By modern standards, Jefferson High's security system was basic, but Frank's trained eyes saw its weaknesses immediately. Entry points were monitored, but perimeter coverage was poor. Interior hallways were visible and exposed, with no strategic choke points. Most concerning of all, evacuation routes were predictable, the kind that any real threat would plan around. When he found Principal Martinez in her office, she was visibly overwhelmed, torn between phone calls and safety procedures. "Frank," she said, in surprise, "you're supposed to be somewhere safe. The protocol." "Principal Martinez," Frank said quietly, his voice carrying an authority she had never heard before, "I need to assess the security posture of this building. What's the classroom layout?" She looked at him and saw something different in his eyes. This was still the janitor, but something else had surfaced, a presence, a command, the kind that instinctively takes control during emergencies. There are 12 classrooms on the first floor, 16 on the second, cafeteria on the main level, gym on the south wing." Frank nodded, mapping it mentally. "ETA on law enforcement?" 5 minutes, maybe 10. Too long. Frank moved to the window, scanning the exterior. "I know this building's weaknesses. If this threat is real, standard protocols won't be enough." "How do you know that?" He paused, then looked her in the eyes. It was time to reveal the truth he had hidden for 30 years. "Because I spent 30 years teaching security protocols at West Point Military Academy. Colonel Frank Williams retired, and right now, 800 lives might depend on what we do next." Principal Martinez's face went pale. You're a colonel?" "I am. And the only thing that matters now is making sure everyone in this building gets home safe." The next 20 minutes were the most organized and effective security operation in Jefferson High's history. Working with the principal, Frank restructured the school's defense and evacuation plans, securing every entry point before the police even arrived. The threat turned out to be a hoax, a malicious prank call from another school, but Frank's leadership would have made all the difference if it had been real. After the building was safely evacuated, Principal Martinez found Frank back in his maintenance closet, looking through old photographs of a younger man in uniform, decorated with medals. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why didn't you tell us?" Frank gently returned the photos to the shelf. "Because I stopped being that person. I taught everything there was to know about war and leadership at West Point, but I never learned one thing: how to be normal. When I came here, I just wanted to be Frank, just someone who helped. But your skills, your experience, they're still here," he smiled, "just used differently. Walking these hallways, watching the students, keeping them safe, that's still service, just without the uniform." Principal Martinez nodded, eyes misting. "Everyone in this school is alive today because you were here." "No," Frank gently corrected. "They're alive because someone was paying attention. And sometimes the best protection is the kind no one ever notices." The next day, Frank returned to work as usual. Same yellow mop bucket, same quiet routine. But now, everything was different. Students paid more attention when they passed him. Teachers said hello. And Principal Martinez knew Jefferson High didn't just have a janitor. It had a guardian angel. Frank didn't seem bothered by the extra attention. He simply smiled, nodded, and got back to work. Because real heroes don't serve for recognition. They serve because it's needed. And sometimes, the greatest leadership is shown when no one knows you're leading. Thank you for watching Honor of Stories. If this story moved you, Hit the like button and subscribe for more tales of quiet courage. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever discovered that someone ordinary was actually extraordinary? What was their story? And remember, some of the most powerful stories are the ones never told. Help us change that, one story